Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Real Life Health Show. I'm so excited about my next guest today. It's Viktoras Kulvinskas. Hello, Viktoras. How are you?
Wonderful. Thank you. How can it be any worse in a blue zone of Costa Rica, Montezuma?
Yes, Viktoras is in Costa Rica and living there, enjoying the beautiful weather out there. So, Viktoras, I want to introduce you for the audience. For those people that do not know you, can you give us a brief background of who you are and how you became the so-called grandfather of the raw food movement?
By accident. Like a lot of things in my life, that's the way it just happens. But with a lot of the people who get involved in the healing arts and become leaders, it just happened I had ended up being one of the early pioneers with Ann Wigmore. Primarily, what we do is find ways to help ourselves, and then from there we move on to go out and help other individuals. So I was in the computer industry, very successful, and I taught college mathematics a couple of years before that, and primarily dropped out and devoted my life to finding out what's wrong with me. Why am I at 29 turning into an old man? And with that investigation, I discovered Ann Wigmore, Dr. Norma Walker, and a few other great people, inspirations and healers and guides. And the result was I co-founded Hippocrates Health Institute with Ann Wigmore. I was the one that introduced sunflower buckwheat greens that are now available at all grocery stores. I was the one that discovered sea cheeses. I pioneered with Dr. Howell enzymology. These are some of the things that were part of my background, but always kept developing more and more insight into simplifying the improvements in people's lives so that even with minor changes, you can have maximum results.
Sure. Well, how old are you and what is your diet currently like?
How old I am, 80, almost 84. And my diet consists of as much as possible sprouts, but we don't have a large variety, but enough of choices, 2-3 different sources of what is available from kamut to kamut, and we have actually French lentils and few other chai, a few other seeds, and then sea cheese is something that I utilize every day. That it's made from fermentation of sunflower, tahini, and few other nuts, and it's like extra sharp cheese, extremely tasty. So might have it with fruit or like banana, papaya, or it might be also with a salad. So that's a major intake. Then evening would be sprouts, greens, energy soup, blended. So just kind of simple salads. I usually have them chopped in a food processor, and just to have it, make sure that they're well pre-chewed. Usually I don't have the best dental, so with the help of food processor, it makes my life work good.
Are you 100% raw, or do you eat some cooked food in your diet?
I eat enzymatic nutrition, so primarily I include like sweet potato a couple times a week, or some beans, or some lentils, or butternut squash, items like that, but they represent a minor part of it. and it's more for enjoyment and entertainment.
Was there a time in your life where you were 100% raw for many years?
Oh yes, for dozens of years during the early phases. Uh, During the first 20 years, yes.
Considering the social aspects and enjoyment of certain foods, do you think 100% raw food diet is best for everyone, or do you think adding a little cooked food is okay?
Oh, I completely believe it. Adding cooked food for anybody is perfectly fine. What you need to do is just make sure you're on enzymatic nutrition. So a couple tablespoons of either sauerkraut, kimchi, or sea cheeses, so that to increase, as well as sprouts. These are the ways of keeping yourself on a very high enzymatic reserve.
Yes, you mentioned you eat some fruit, and you live in Costa Rica where you get fresh fruit. Uh, I know there's a lot of questions about is it okay to eat some fruit or no fruit? What's your opinion about people eating fruit?
Well, exaggerated intake of fruit, like eating a dozen bananas, like some individuals who are advocate that position, is just not a very healthy approach. You're overloading yourself with sugar, and then there's also, when you're living in northern climate, to rely a lot on fruit, what you end up getting at your grocery stores and whatever level of distribution, it tends to be very acidic. So you're going to be basically doing quite a bit of acidification of yourself. So um, a two at maybe 3 cups of fruit per day is something that everybody can tolerate and do well.
Sure.
And eat local fruit, especially. That's really the best way. So that's why, like right now, with the kind of food that we have access, is just phenomenal in terms of taste. I never experienced mangoes or bananas or papayas like the kind that I have access here, or pineapple, guanabana. Just all there's right now. Dragon fruit is in season. It's just so delightful.
So I guess you're saying the quality of the fruit determines to a degree if people should include it in their diet or not, or depending how much they include.
Absolutely, and in moderation is the best direction. In the Bible, Ezekiel says greens are for healing, and primarily we're right now in such a toxic soup of not only microwave, but also airborne pollution, especially chemtrails. We're being poisoned and right and left. And you need the greens as the #1 emphasis in your dietary orientation. So green juices, as well as also greens, need to be an essential part of your dietary orientation.
And from your opinion, what's the most important things people that are new to learning about the raw food diet and lifestyle should do with their diet? The most three important, let's say the most important things that you would advise for people that are new to this.
Well, I think the most important thing is it's the intermittent fasting concept is very important, and especially with food scarcity that is becoming more and more pronounced on a world scale. We're going to want to reduce our meals to 2 meals or even 1 meal per day, just in order to be able to take care of ourselves. But that's actually a very healthy condition. So I would say eating less is always beneficial, no matter what. And if you're bodybuilder, and if you're trying to, to have the size that you want, well, more soaked seeds and nuts, at the same time, fermented seed cheeses. These are the ways of getting high quality protein into your system that is enzymatic, bioavailable, and easily absorbed and effective. So you can actually, with that approach, gain about 1 pound of lean muscle mass every week. And some people do even better than that, depending on the exercise routines and how you challenge your system.
Sure. And so how has your health been over the years in personally from eating this way?
Well, it's been improving. That's the beautiful part. I have to say that most people don't know me altogether that well. I had been most of my life an emotional basket case, and when you have a situation like that, you're living pretty much with an EQ somewhere around 20, 30, and basically emotional quotient, and you have a difficult, stressed out situation. It's only been during the last, I would say, 3, 4 years that I've been extremely happy, able to carry on, transparent, be communicative, and enjoy quality of life. That's something that can take a long time. I had a very, very scarred emotional life experience. World War II, being bombed, being poisoned by inoculation. I went into a coma for 1 month. Then I ended up having a major cut up on one of my legs. A year later, I ended up going into another coma. So I had, and then I was trying to escape Russians while with the German front. So we were being shot at, violence all around you from airplanes, Americans, Russian tanks shooting at us. So, I was like in one of these, games that folks like to play of violence. Well, I lived in that violent world. So there's a lot, it had a major impact on me, and it has taken a long time to recover, to overcome the terror.
Sure. They say we learn a lot from our mistakes, but and we all make mistakes. So what would you say for people to learn from your mistakes? What are some mistakes you've made over the years in terms of your diet that you'd advise other people to be warned about not to make the same mistakes?
Well, primarily, for one thing, I was using food as a way of basically suppressing my feelings. So I was prone to overeating, and I used that, and then that led to bulimia, and that had lasted for a while. And I managed, thank God, because I took enzymes at that time already. That was long in my I would say in my 40s. It was a struggle to maintain myself emotionally. So my feeling is overeating is like one of the worst culprits. Addiction to too much sugar, that means lots of fruit and honey and all this other kind of sweet stuff. Addiction to oils. There's really, oil should be minimized or best totally avoided. Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine, the Vegan Medical Association, says that oils are processed foods. We should be able to get everything we need from such things as avocado or olives and other sources, soaked seeds and nuts. So these are big deals. Until I discovered enzymology, which took 2 years with Ann Wigmore. I was 90 pounds and 6 foot tall at that time, and around 90, 95 pounds. So, I looked like a poster child for anorexia, primarily. And once I discovered fermentation, within 1 year, I gained over 45 pounds of lean muscle mass. So it's a whole process of overall discovery, but primarily just under eating, chewing, slowing down, spending more time detoxifying yourself emotionally. Because when you're under emotional stress, and most people are right now, the dominant activity is fear, and very few people are living in a state of love and trust and understanding. And that's where peace and harmony and basically and guidance comes for your life through the divine. So most people live in fear of what they're getting from mass media, what they're getting from their environment, and as a result, they're basically their digestion is shut off. And I just see so many people coming for consultations, and they seem to be doing all kind of wonderful things so well and everything, yet they're abstaining from soaking their seeds and nuts. So you've got congested lungs. You find also individuals are basically just eating large volumes, and at the same time, food is not being digested because they're stressed out on the job. They don't know how to manage themselves. My own attitude is, yeah, raw food is great, but even more important is the holistic lifestyles. And this is basically addressing the 5 pillars of health. And these are minor pillars, and that is not, of course, diet, exercise, attitude, your rest and recovery, and at the same time, the environment which within you are immersed. All of these things are going to produce the final outcome. And the biggest factor in terms of impacting the individuals is basically most people are unhappy. So you got to kind of work on becoming happy and identify what are the causes for your stress. And once you start identifying, then you won't be in a fight-flight mode. And when you are in a fight-flight mode, your digestive functions are completely shut off. And basically, so food rots, and people, they might be eating good nutrition, but the food is spoiling in the stomach over there. So it's very important to work on especially your emotions. It's very important to have structure in your life, having a morning where you spend organizing your life, meditating, doing some exercise, dedicating at least an hour, preferably more. If you take a look at individuals who are achievers, they usually will spend as many as 2 hours in the morning just taking care of themselves, and basically before they rush into. And if they got all kind of other obligations, you get up earlier, you go to bed earlier, have a good schedule. So it's very important. Holistic lifestyles, not just diet, is just one pillar, and the biggest impact on the overall condition of the individual is, of course, that food are basically create occurring conditions especially this as you keep on challenging your body with enzymeless nutrition. What you're doing is keep borrowing, and eventually, your body is retaining waste products of incompletely metabolized foods, fats, starches, sugars, and basically predisposing you to a combination of health conditions, especially cardiovascular, which is the first attempt on managing the incompletely metabolized foods by storing it throughout the whole basement membrane, and then also the excess fats or excess sugars end up showing up as fat, and then eventually, when that can't keep up in management, and you have 60,000 miles of blood vessels where your body is primarily able to store all this stuff, then basically body Dr. Otto Warburger showed that when you reduce the oxygen level in the vicinity of normal reproductive cells, then the cell will go through mutation within a matter of 24 hours, and either it'll die or it'll mutate to cancer cells, and they suck up into little sacs the circulatory and completely metabolized garbage, so you don't die from asphyxiation, because that's what happens. Your body is completely dependent on oxygen, and all this circulatory garbage reduces your oxygen availability. So basically, exhausting yourself of enzymes is such a major crisis, and that's why I advocate everybody be taking enzymes, and that includes people who are raw food. As you get into raw food, salads and all, you have enough enzymes to digest itself. The foods that are noted to be very high in enzymes are sprouts and soaked seeds and nuts, fermented foods, and then of course kimchi, sauerkraut, and all the other ferments. So but at the same time, by taking supplements, you end up benefiting you and rebuilding, first of all, your enzymatic reserves. By the time you hit your 20s, your body already starts rationing enzymes. And by the time you hit every decade, basically you lose at least 12%. Every decade, you lose at least 12% of your enzymatic reserves. So by the time you're 50, you lost about 60% of your enzymatic reserves. That's why you're so sensitive to all kind of foods and everything. So it's a whole challenge for the individual. Try to, maintain a way of life that is centers around simplifying and improving on every level.
Sure. You've mentioned about getting up early and taking time for yourself. And one of the things I learned from you many years ago at a conference you and I were at in Portland, Oregon, and we shared a room together, is at the time you were going to sleep very early compared to the average person. Do you still do that? And what's your sleeping schedule? How many hours a night do you sleep? What time do you normally go to sleep? And do you normally wake up?
I generally go to bed between 6 and 7, sometimes, and that I've stayed up as late as midnight, but that happens rarely. I make a point of not allowing anything to interfere with my sleep, and I get up probably about 4 o'clock in the morning, and then I meditate, exercise, do yoga, qigong, and meditate, and primarily, and then do karma yoga. So I try to eat the first, stay on liquids, so it'll be green juices. I use an omega juicer, so we have access to organic greens year round, so directly from the farm. So we're able to juice up all kind of variety of choices. And then by the time noon rolls around, then having a first meal, very similar to what we have put into practice at Hippocrates Health Institute, is staying on primarily intermittent fasting. In other words, reducing the eating time to about 6 to 7 hours.
Sure. So you're sleeping on average 8 to 9 hours a night, you would say?
No, sir. No, between 6 and 7.
Okay. Okay. So do you think people that eat mostly raw foods in their diet will require less sleep than people eating the standard American diet?
Depends on the level of exercise activity. So if you're heavy involved with physical challenges, like you're someone who is involved in competitive activity, weight training and all, yeah, you need more time for recovery, or at least you need some cat naps.
You've mentioned fasting and intermittent fasting. What about fasting in general? How often do you fast, or have you fast?
Well, just I haven't. It's been years since I fasted on it for any length of time. I'll end up fasting 4 days at a time, like maybe once a year, but mostly just 1 day a week. Basically, stay on a liquid program.
And when you say a liquid program, is that water or is that juice 1 day a week?
No, basically I ended up using juices.
Okay.
Although you can stay on water. Water is excellent.
Now, as for water, what type of water do you recommend people drink as the safest water?
Well, considering what do you have running in your tap, and major city testing shows over 60 different medications are running down your tap. So, and no filter will get rid of it. Our RV helps, gets rid of most of it, and distillation. So we distill our water and then put it through vitalizer, basically, which is a way of putting it through spinning action that increases absorption, but primarily, and then adding a little bit of minerals by way of Himalayan sea salt.
Okay, so distilled water with some Himalayan sea salt, you would say is a good way to go. Yeah?
And distillers can be found in a marketplace. You can find a good one for as low as $300. They'll make 4 gallons a day, but you can find them even lower, up to $100.
Now, somebody in your age range, I know you said you do some exercises. How much strengthening exercise do you do, like exercising with weights and things like this? And how important do you think it is on this diet to do?
Well, I ended up I have structural issues due to basically due to my childhood, and so because of that, my spine has been through a lot of changes, and I started developing pinched nerves about, I don't know, 5 years ago in neck and areas of the hips. So instead of saying, oh, I got to stop, instead I started developing more and more exercise. So I exercise 7 days a week. And nowadays I work myself up to where I'm doing between up to 50 push-ups in the morning, and then I do isometric training. So I work out my whole body through isometrics and breath of fire, so for an hour, and then I use light weights, and then I have a basically bench press. I do maybe once a week, do like 30-pound bench press. So I believe in resistance training is very important. So is cardio. So I work my stairway.
Sure. I have a question. Do you know many people over the years? I know you know a handful, but do you know many people that have been eating a 100% raw vegan diet over the years that lived a long time?
Well, primarily, the countries that are, longevity is basically greatly affected by many factors. Again, having to do with the 5 pillars of health. And the blue zone areas are noted for longevity, and studies have been done in National Geographic's. The whole issue in '72 was devoted to basically longevity, and the outstanding features were they were all basically eating a wide variety of wild-crafted plants. That's number one. Secondly, and caloric intake was less than 1,500 calories per day. Protein intake was less than 35 grams per day. Very high roughage. Roughage is very important. Most people don't realize how important is roughage, in a sense that because our life has to do is the life of the microbe. And so, you ask me about, raw food longevity. No, I know people, not know, like in 1933 New York Times, I quote the exact article, was a Chinaman who was congratulated every 50 years for his longevity and overall health. And basically, he died in his 254 years of age. And it was attested throughout his whole history. He lived off green foods that only above the land, and he ate all raw. So he was the only example that I know. Then secondly was the example of the Essene ministry. Historian Josephus, he talks about the outstanding longevity of the Essenes. I know they were living 400 years, 400% longer than the rest of the Caribbean, rather Mediterranean area, Northern Africa, Southern Europe. So basically, and they were into raw foods. The advanced diet among the elite was raw, but people ate also some cooked, but primarily cooking was very minimal because they were living in the desert. So there was primarily cooking with the sun, as one would say. So they made chapatis and, Essene crackers and, the kind of preparations. So these were noted to be quite outstanding individuals for longevity. I have in my book Survival also a couple quoted individuals he died at 120. One of them was a yogini who lived on raw foods. When I was at the Ann Wigmore festival that Brian and I organized in Lithuania, on the second one, we had it. We ended up having it every year. So a yogi appeared who was dressed in pink, the pink robes, long hair, beard, laughing just like a young child, doing outrageous postures and leaping around. He had been raw food most of his life. So, and he was 106 or something like that. So these are a few examples of individuals that I ran into over the years, and also having a historical precedent. So basically, primarily, as far as longevity is concerned, in the animal kingdom, if you take a look at, we try to measure by years. Instead, try to measuring it differently. If it takes the measurement that is really representative of what is human longevity potential, and it's in the book of generations, it shows that primarily the animals might, like dog and cat, within 6 months, it's able already to reproduce. Okay, so it's able to get another animal pregnant and have children. Well, and how long? So if you start counting the age of sexual maturation as being 1 unit, well, they live under even minimal care, a dog or a cat. One of my friends, Lee, he has got a cat that is 24 years old, and primarily, so that would be equivalent to an extremely, extremely long individual, 600-year-old person in terms of age by this kind of standard. So if we apply these rules to humans, humans should be easily living way over hundreds and hundreds, just like Methuselah. Methuselah was just not a made-up fictitious character. That was a reality. Basically, they were into eating the way of nature. They were following the Genesis I-29. So as a result, longevity was basically pronounced, and also our whole sexual maturation, menstrual period appearing at one time it used to be 18, 20. Now, menstrual starts appearing with girls at 10, 12 years old. And it has to do with lifestyle habits, diet, and all these kind of factors. And this all accelerates the whole aging process. So it's a combination of diet and other lifestyle considerations. But we need to take a look at just always back to some historical data and at the same time, whatever we can extrapolate out of our present, like the National Geographic study in longevity.
Sure. I don't know currently many people living on a 100% raw vegan diet for a long time. Of the few people I know, they're doing okay. I know a fellow in his 90s, he's doing wonderful, and he's been raw for over 50 years. But why do you think there aren't people eating a 100% raw vegan diet that are doing it for a long time out there today?
So basically, social pressures. Most people like to be part of a society, and society basically finds, you go out, celebrate. It's always, food is part of celebrations and part of continuous opening. So, individuals will go out and into a beautiful, raw food restaurant, and that's great. And you can end up eating all kind of raw exotic dishes, usually too much fat, usually too much sugar, and they're not particularly altogether that necessarily a healthy approach. Primarily simple nutrition, simple eating habits are the best as far as life is concerned. So, but people are family, and unless you get the whole family cooperating, like right now, I had a guest for a weekend who just moved to Costa Rica. They've been 2 years on a raw food, and 2 children, somewhere along 7 and 10, and basically, and they're all into raw foods the last 2 years, the whole family, and also mother. So they're all supportive of the whole complex. And that makes it easy for a family. And I know they will stay into it. They needed a lot of learning. They were making a whole lot of mistakes, including the emotional component, including the lack of soaking, including also the food combining. So, people end up creating situations until they really get it right, where they're eating it in the righteous fashion. I had a visit from France, a family with 6, and they've been into raw foods for about 4 years. They're distributors of seeds. However, after doing diagnostic, I use scanning, I use acupressure meridians, I use kinesiology as a way of establishing what is going on with them. And they were in pretty rough shape, and all of a sudden, you know, they took on enzymes, and basically within a period of 3 weeks, they noticed such radical changes and improvements. Just like, you know, I ran many years ago, I ran into Marilyn Diamond and with her hubby, and basically they were run down, you know, in a pretty bad situation. So I says, let me prepare something for you and see what kind of improvements you can make. I created for them a green mixture of, you know, just blue-green algae, spirulina, wheatgrass powders, and stuff like that. And I says, you know, you take that stuff twice a day, and then I whipped together for them an enzyme formula, and those people just couldn't believe it. They ended up writing a new book called Phytonics, and they quoted me all over about enzymology. You know, so primarily people need to get some good start. Most people are mixed in their life, and nobody's there to point it out. I'm one of these individuals that I'm very good diagnostician because of my 50 years of experience. So I can investigate deep and find out all the details enough so that I'm able to help them. And at the same time, I made my share of mistakes and never being Mr. Perfect. So I continue to arise in my own level of evolution. And I have a tremendous amount of compassion and tolerance for other individuals. I don't think of myself any kind of special. I'm just another person who's out to help and serve humanity with the knowledge base that was given to me.
Sure. So I know you mentioned enzymes a lot. So besides enzymes, and what other supplements do you recommend that would be very helpful for people?
Well, first of all, if you're doing the best probiotic supplements is, you know, it's stuff that you grow at home, sauerkraut, kimchi, and the large and every there's an excellent book written by Dr. Bolshevitz called, and it's on a bestseller list. It's called Fiber Fuel. It's all about microbial life, how important it is, and basically a lot of variety in your fiber choice over the weeks and years, because every different vegetable brings in different kind of microbial cultures. So like that's why like kimchi can have thousands of varieties of different microbial cultures because of so many different vegetables that are involved in it. And the way so probiotics would be one, and to enhance the quality of probiotics, I always suggest basically basically to add sunflower or chia, not chia, excuse me, sunflower or some other seed in order to feed the microbes with also not only carbohydrates and fibers. So they're not only going to produce amylase, but also they're going to produce, now they're trying to digest the seeds, they're going to produce lipase for digestion of fats, and also they're going to produce basically protease for digestion of proteins. So they become a good source of digestive activity and support. So one would be primarily enzymes. You can use them with your meals. You take them on an empty stomach, and that cleans out your cardiovascular system. Some of it has, and then of course, a good green food concentrate, especially blue-green algae. Blue-green algae is like very classic in terms of powers. When I combine these three factors with Dan O'Brien, you probably know of him as an athletic decathlon in 1995. He could work out an hour a day in terms of training for basically competitive athletics. And he was moving on in age. We put him on blue green algae. We put him on enzymes. We put him on probiotics. Within 5 weeks, he was working out 8 hours a day, 7 to 8 hours a day. He competed with men 10 years younger than him, winning in gold and in a decathlon, which is like the higher, most competitive event. We've seen hundreds of athletes had achieved, whether you're looking at Stairmaster, aerobics competitors, #1, with this kind of program. We also did a preliminary study with medical doctors where they isolated out of thousands of volunteers who submitted themselves, but only I kept the ones that had authentic diagnostic by a medical community of their existing preliminary condition. And then we followed that up with a program where they was blue-green algae, enzymes, and probiotics. In 4 months, they were diagnosed again by a medical community and established to be free of the condition. And that included emphysema. And basically, it was these 3 products that was primarily even the condition of, and it was submitted to University of Illinois School of Medicine, 200 cases of incurables treated successfully with 3 superfoods. The medical community were going to accept it and publishing it, but they had to reject it because they would have lost all their advertisement funding. So it never ended up getting published, this particular preliminary study. So that stuff is pretty powerful. Children that had lowest academic performance, just even with 1 supplement, children that had lowest academic performance, 2,000 children in Nicaragua. Okay, a priest from a village asked us to help them out. So we gave them 1 capsule in the morning and 1 capsule at night. Within 1 school year, they became the top school in the country, going up by 2.5 grades. ADD was, there's all papers published with the treatment of ADD, the impact it has on autism. So supplements do make a big difference in terms of quality recovery, including I watched my own grandmother who had Alzheimer's condition with, again, enzymes, probiotics, blue-green algae. She managed within 5 weeks. She was fully functional when the doctor said she'll never recover. She never changed her diet. She refused to do that. And she died of dietary toxemia within about 4 years. But during all that time, she functioned with mental clarity, running a family bookkeeping, taking care of everything for the family. So,
Sure. Well, I know you mentioned a lot about supplements here. How important are supplements on this vegan diet? And in terms of the vegan diet in general, so is it possible to eat a vegan diet without supplements? That's the first question. And then I'll have another question for you.
Yes, it is.
Okay. So my other question is if somebody chose to include animal products in their diet, I understand the compassionate side of killing innocent animals is not good at all. And I understand the environmental impact of being non-vegan is not good. But from a standpoint of nutrition, can somebody include animals or animal products in a small amount and be healthy, in your opinion?
Absolutely. Again, I keep emphasizing, health is not the result of singular dietary choices. It's the result of holistic lifestyle. Undereating is the #1 contributing factor in longevity. My mother, she drank every day for 40 years. She worked 16 to 20 hours a day. 6 days a week and took 2 half days off during the week. Yes, she ended up dying in her late 80s. Small meals. She would come home, ate a small bowl of soup. She would prepare feasts for parties when families were thrown. Everybody was feasting. She wouldn't touch anything. So undereating is so important for quality of health and longevity. Genetics is a major big factor, and we're seeing the generation of genetic material because of demineralization. And you see the genetic falling apart just in the earlobes. If you take a look at the children, the adults, 70 years ago in a yearbook, you take a look at everybody had long earlobes. Obesity was practically unknown. In our school of 300 children, only one person was obese. Now, what we have is 52% of our children are sick with chronic incurable diseases. So it's in the lifestyles, it's in the fact, if organic, eating low, chewing well, being happy. Happiness is a big indicator whether you're going to live a long time or you're going to live a short time. Being physically active, couch potatoes don't last long, so just whole factors. If you're living next to a nuclear power plant, you can be doing raw foods and you're going to fry. That's just the nature of the environment. And right now, planet Earth is subject to severe, definitely challenging conditions, and you better do everything possible, namely go big on greens, food scarcity. Right now, they destroyed over 500 food processing plants, and this is within the last 12 months over there. Food scarcity is being developed so that we're going to be in for some really serious consideration in terms of our future bioavailability. It's why it's important for people to store up some seeds, to basically be prepared to live on less and less and simpler, and at the same time be in a place of security and live in a basically love and trust. That means have divine guidance. Meditation is your most powerful ally. When you live in love and trust, then you will be able to survive anything that is happening. Just like in the Bible, basically Daniel and his buddies were thrown into fire. They wouldn't burn. Well, hey, I did 6 fire walkings. I didn't burn. It's all consciousness. I broke my knee. Just did laying of the hands, and immediately after I broke my knee, it healed in less than 12 minutes. This is the power that we have, human beings, primarily when you step. So you need to learn about the human mechanics, about the power of your body and ability to handle yourself under the most difficult situations. And you rely on divine guidance. That's where meditation and prayers. Your prayers is asking, but you find the answer in stillness. In the Bible, it tells you, be still and know I am God. You are gods. We're all gods in drag. The deeper we can get into stillness, the more we're going to get better results in our lives.
Yes, it says in the Bible, my people destroyed for lack of knowledge. And it also says in the scriptures that if we have the faith of as small as a mustard seed, we can move mountains. And I think a lot of issues people have today is they have
the
no
Bible
knowledge.
is very rich in terms of information. So are all the sacred scriptures. So doesn't matter which religious group you take.
Well, I believe people need to gain more knowledge and have more faith, and I think it's something that's being taught today in the world is that they shouldn't have faith in anything except doctors, and they shouldn't have any knowledge about our Creator, and that's a big problem. So I hear everything you're saying, And thinking about, I wrote a book called The Daylight Diet. This is the last topic I'm going to talk about today with you. And everybody, I'm going to put Viktoras's contact information below the video, if you can contact him at those links below the video. So I wrote this book called The Daylight Diet. And this book talks about not eating late at night. It's best to stop eating earlier in the day to go to sleep on an empty stomach, in my opinion. And I have a lot of good examples here. From your knowledge, what's been your experience with what I call the daylight diet and not eating late at night and going to sleep on an empty stomach? What's been your opinion of that?
It's first of all, by following those procedures, you cut down the amount of sleep that you're going to need, because the first phase of your sleep is finishing up the digestion, whatever is in your stomach. Before you start doing detoxification of the metabolic environmental waste that you have accumulated during the 16, 18 hours that you've been up vertical. So basically, it's extremely beneficial. The longer you create intermittent fasting or avoiding of food, the healthier you will be. So it's very beneficial. And during the within 12, 14 hours, your body starts manufacturing human growth hormones, so that it's regenerating. It's increasing radically your stem cell production during that phase of the fast. It's also increasing your enzymatic reserves, so your blood vessels are going through inner cleansing. Your body's just going through detoxification and dealing with inflammatory conditions, etc. So absolutely, you're completely right on.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, Viktoras, I so appreciate you taking the time out. Everybody, I'm going to put Viktoras's links below the video so you can contact him. He has wonderful books out there. You can get them all over the internet. He has a wonderful website. I'll put the link below the video, and so many teachings on YouTube. Viktoras, what are you working on right now? Are you working on any new projects that you'd like people to know about?
Well, it was initiated by Dr. Brian Clemens that we're going to co-author creating an updated version of surviving the 21st century. Primarily, it's extremely challenging, and it's basically how to deal with a third-dimensional world in a state of eco-collapse, and at the same time utilizing the fourth density, moving into the heart space of love, understanding, and kindness instead of fear and doubt, and the strategies for basically becoming a minimalist, becoming very simplified, basically the start of the Aquarian age.
Wonderful, wonderful. That's really exciting. And before we finish here today, is there anything else you'd like to add to our interview before we finish? And I thank you so much for your time. And again, I want to encourage everyone to go to Viktoras's social media below the video.
Yes, well, I just basically rely on the alternative media, trust your inner guidance, spend as much as time in nature, always share love, kindness, care, and of course, avoid being affected by any kind of poisoning with the medications. So use medicine as needed, but at the same time, minimize your exposure to any kind of medication. I had not used any medication for over 50 years. So basically, and you save a lot on insurance when you let nature be your healthcare insurance. So take good care of yourself with a holistic model. Love is the way. Always share love, share blessings. Know God, life is good. is God's neighborhood, and God is everywhere. So I send you a blessing.
Thank you very much, Viktoras. You have a blessed day. Thank you so much for your time. And thank you, everybody, for
Thank
watching.
you, Paul.
Put your comments and questions below.
You're a jewel to the world. You brought so much wisdom and knowledge and into the mass media that we would not be in such a large expansion and growth if it wasn't people like yourself.
Well, I thank you for all your information out there to help me as I learn this and continue to read your resources. So thank you so much, and you have a great afternoon, and we'll talk again soon.
I will. You made it very special.
Thank you.
Nature's wealth, good for your health. This is the Raw Life Health Show. Raw Life, brighten up your life.